Welcome to another episode of the MBSE Podcast. Today, we have a talk to two guys, again from Lithuania. I guess last time was also somebody from Lithuania. Yeah, and we are talking about a tool. And many of you were waiting for it for a long time, over 5 years now. And we are talking to the guys behind one of, or maybe the most compliant tool for SysML v1, and we want to know what they did for SysML v2. So, welcome, Andrius and Aurelijus, and please introduce.
All right, so Andrius Armonas, I'm the product manager for our SysML v2 solution, basically taking care of its high-level roadmap and directions where we are going. I joined NoMagic in 2007, so long ago, and actually this is where we started development of SysML v1 implementation. So yeah, so here we are, where we are actually releasing SysML v2 and adding new stuff every day.
Hello, my name is Aurelijus. I'm leading the consulting of model-based systems engineering and enterprise architecture under CATIA brand in Dassault Systems. Also highly involved with communities, part of OMG for 15 years, chairing Unified Architecture Framework standard, and also highly involved with INCOSE and chairing enterprise systems engineering working group within INCOSE.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, welcome also from my side to this podcast episode. Great that you are here. Let's start very general. So, how did you get both into MBSE?
Yeah, so for me, that was pretty simple. I am a developer myself and still developing, not at work, but at home. So I was, heavy on C++, then moved to Python. And, in 2002, 2004, it wasn't that popular, but we badly needed a tool to do the architecture and to talk to the other architects and developers. So we had to use something or started using UML at that time. And also we then realized that we actually need to formalize use cases, because that's really useful. So this is where I got really, really interested. And then actually I did my bachelor's and master's thesis, and by the way, later on a PhD thesis on these topics. And yeah, just like I mentioned, in 2007, I joined NoMagic, and actually at the very right, I would say, time when we just started SysML v1 development.
My story is kind of similar. Also started from UML and studying computer science. Maybe just the funny story, how I got this job, which I'm doing already for 18 years, is when I got to the job interview with NoMagic back then, I've got a question, do you by the chance know DODAF, which is Department of Defense Architecture Framework? And, it was really by accident because I just completed some small thesis like a month before on DODAF. And I said, yeah, of course. And I started explaining it, and the guy said, all right, you're hired. That's what we need, a product manager for our DODAF and UPDM back then. And now, later UAF solution.
Yeah, so maybe for the people who are listening live to you are able to ask questions in chat, so feel free. Anything you ever wanted to know from guys and about Cameo. Yeah, speaking of the tool, so I think everybody who has ever touched SysML knows about. Many of our listeners have used it. So the question is, how hard was it to implement SysML? Was it just changing the shapes, or was it more work?
Okay, Paul, I can take that question. It was pretty hard. It took us probably like 3 years. And it's not that, some people did it and took care of it. Actually, all teams had to do that. The thing is that it's less of an issue to implement the metamodel support, right? You just, that's a different kind of a structure, data structure. The thing is the features, the capabilities we have. So each feature, basically what it does, it most likely reads data from the model and analyzes it, does something with it, and puts it back to the model. So you can imagine that, well, there's a different meta model now, different data structures. So every single feature needed to be reviewed and adjusted. So, but the thing is that we took this as an opportunity. So we never had an intent to just go ahead and blindly rewrite what we had. So what we actually did is we said, okay, let's start very minimal. So, and we actually implemented a product where we had only graphical and textual support. But initially, we didn't even have a specification window. And we know it's heavily used. But we said, let's experiment with crazy ideas and let's not just have it, right? And actually that we immediately got, response from our customers, it's a bad idea. But you never know, because in principle, textual is enough to do anything you want in specification window. So why would you need it? And but it was immediately obvious that we need it, right? So we took a very cautious approach actually to rewrite any features. And if we do that, then we knew that, okay, we need to be ready for another 15 years, okay? Which means any service we implement, any new capability, it needs to be able to be deployed on the server side. If we are implementing validation, we want it to run on the server side. And maybe there will be a web-based tool which will run this validation. And basically that's a rule now. All capabilities needs to run on the server side. And if possible, they need to be web-based. For example, just to give you a hint, our textual editor is a web-based component in Cameo. Many people don't realize it, but it's a web-based component. Yeah.
But
so it's a lot of work, 3 years of work, and I still think that it's a lot of years left.
But if I open your tool, I can also load SysML v1 models, and then it looks like before. And I can also open SysML v2 models. So is it actually the same user interface and beneath the surface are two different tools?
With some exceptions. I mean, it's I would say most of the code that we are sharing between implementation is diagramming, probably. So diagramming is such a beautiful piece of code, and everyone just loves our diagramming. So we were able to reuse a lot of that in V2 implementation. Yeah. But other than that, they're pretty different, I would say. Yeah, pretty different.
Maybe the frame itself looks the same.
But underneath
the main window, but then when you go into more details, you start seeing the difference, especially on the textual editor, right? Specification window. So even the containment tree has a different look and feel.
Yeah, actually, the specification windows also the new one is web-based fully. So yeah.
So we guys met more in the United States than in Europe. So you were part of the standardization process from the beginning. And was it an advantage to be in the standardization process from the beginning on, or was the first 5 years wasted time and starting in the 6 years would have been enough? How was your experience?
Very sure. I think that
at the very beginning, when there was just an idea of the SysML v2, there were a lot of fights and arguments, and I remember the point when there were two different groups considering to submit a different specification. But then, at some point, I think primarily thanks to the leadership by Sandy Friedantel, those groups managed to get together and really start working on the specification. I personally was not really involved in SysML v2 development. My work is on the UAF development, but as we started working on the UAF v2 and start touching the SysML v2, we really start working close with the SysML v2 team, trying, because we were really the first real test of extending SysML v2. Start working closely with the SysML v2 team, and Andrius perhaps could talk more about the work that happened in the SysML v2 group.
Yeah, so for SysML v2 specifically, I remember I counted at some point, maybe last year, how many suggestions we proposed and that were accepted, because many people propose something that is not accepted. So we roughly proposed 150 suggestions, one way or another form, throughout those years. A lot. I mean, this is a lot. But actually and you cannot do just that just in 1 or 2 years, right? It's impossible. But I can just tell you one funny story, why it's useful to be from the very beginning, because you understand the intent of a language. And the funny story is, a lot of people are confused about the textual syntax. So the only reason, guys, as you know, it's part of the language, is completely accidental, right? In 2017, nobody was thinking about LLMs and nobody knew about LLMs. And now people, users, they say, actually, customers, they say, oh, actually, it was designed to support LLMs, and AI. This is a modern language, that's brilliant. But they don't know it was completely accidental. And the reason for that was that the idea was that, okay, we need a pilot implementation so that, tool vendors like us could rely on it and look into the pilot implementation and see how the implementation should work, right? And the developers, like at Sidewitz, they only knew how to build textual editors. So that was a choice just because of the knowledge and know-how that they had at the moment, not because that was intentional. And that's how textual syntax was invented, and it's brilliant. I mean, it's crazy. It's great confidence, right? But it was just completely accidental. So.
Yeah, now it's one of the most prominent features. No? So it's,
yeah, but what I mean, guys, I think that's the point. We don't need to forget the intent of a language. And the intent of a language is actually to help systems engineers to integrate different disciplines. And yes, one of the ways how you author your models and look into the models is through text, but it's just one of the ways. And we don't need to forget it.
Yeah, right. Yes, SysML v2, where there are more prominent features like the text notation, and another one is the SysML v2 API. That's also brand new. Well, API is not brand new, but SysML v1 had no API. Now we have an API which, well, can be a game changer in the tool ecosystem. Do you support the API?
Yes, we do, and we support it like 100%. So there is, yes, SysML v2 standardized API, and it is actually, I would say, a base for the change, right? It's a good base for the future, but it's an efficient one. We immediately understood that we need to add more to this, so we built some extensions. They are already available. So one specific extension, which is not part of standardized API, but we added this evaluation API. You know that SysML v2 does have the expression support. It's basically everywhere in the language. It's like a querying language, right, if you will. So now through the RESTful API in Cameo, you can simply go to the server side and basically call any expression you want on the server side. So for example, you can say, oh, what's the mass of the entire system? And that's one call, one simple call to understand what's the mass of your system. Or can you verify this requirement? It does it in one simple call. So without this, it would be a huge piece of, code to do that with standardized API. So yeah, so these extensions are necessary to actually do something useful and simple. Yeah.
And I think this is, for me, it's also one of the key major features of LV2, so that SysML models can be used downstream in the development process and are not stuck in after the early phases.
Very much agree. Yeah, just going back to this idea that, again, we don't need to forget the intent of what MBSE stands for. Why do we need it? It's exactly to integrate disciplines, which means disciplines will bring in their data, and not humans will be, populating that data into the models. They will come from different tools, from CADs, from whatnot, from EE tools. So, and that will hopefully happen mostly through RESTful API, standardized one.
Okay, so yeah, if I remember well, my time at the university, I used Cameo Systems Modeler very much, and there were already in V1 some features that are not standardized by the language because it's not a language feature. I remember the mass rollup or the rollup feature in SysML V1, and I guess you have also new standout features for SysML V1, right?
It was just one that Andrius mentioned already on the API side. But yes, obviously, I think there are a bunch of features that we implement. Of course, there's going to be, let's say, it will take time, right? It will not happen the next day. Because as you know, our V1 implementation was really rich in a lot of automation and a lot of usability features that can really increase your productivity. And obviously now on the V2, the ultimate goal is to have the same, but as it's completely new language and the new foundation, we're just going step by step. Perhaps, Andrius, you could mention some of those that we already have.
Yeah, so again, very good question, and thanks for asking, because you mentioned mass rollups. So that's something we had more than 10 years ago. Actually, we invented these patterns. We did invent together with NASA JPL, because they were heavy and still is a very heavy customer of ours. So, and now I see in the community, some people actually advertising mass rollups as an innovation, which now comes with SysML V2. It has nothing to do with SysML V2. And actually, when we go to the customers and they use SysML V1 and they say, oh, why should we move to V2? It's not a good argument to say, oh, you will do mass rollups. They did it actually. And actually they did dynamic mass rollups and power rollups and whatnot. All these things were available 10 years ago, and they were polished and perfectly implemented. So no innovation here. So that's exactly what we need to talk. Is exactly why exactly SysML V2 is better than V1. One of the aspects everyone knows, textual. Absolutely, it opens so much use cases, so many use cases, and it's a huge thing. But that's just one. And many people who have never coded anything, or non-developers, they will never use it. By the way, we have to admit that. So, but still, it's a huge thing. Another is model evaluation. We never had in V1 querying. And we are the only implementation, from what I know, the only tool that actually supports full model evaluation, or querying, as I call it, right? Then model evaluation API that we have, that's like a killer. That's a killer capability. Another one that I would like to mention that we have, and it's part of the standard, but nobody except us supports it, it's diagrams by queries. You define a view and you specify an expression, and that's your query. And your diagrams, they get refreshed automatically. That's cool. Again, it's a killer capability in the language. And again, people are saying, oh, you can now build tables by a query. Well, we always had it. So there's nothing, to say what's better. But now if you take a symbolic views with symbols and paths, and that is new. Yes, that's very, very useful. So yeah, these things absolutely make SysML V2 better than V1. This is what we need to list as a community and let customers know and everyone know what you will gain from it.
There is an interesting question from Axel Scheitauer, who is asking, do you consider to propose the extensions that you made to the API also back to the standard, maybe for an V2 API 2.1 or something like that?
For sure. So for 2.0, the goal we had, and we have representatives, Tomas Viliniškis, you know him. He's our representative at the API working group. So we just wanted to actually make it useful the way it is. We didn't want to add new endpoints, expand it, just to make the foundation right. now, yes, the next step will be expanding it.
Okay. So now you talked about what is already there. Can you also tell us a little bit about what's on the roadmap, so in the future?
Oh, that's a okay. How do I not spend half an hour on this?
Let me tell you what I'm looking forward to first, right? So I'm really looking forward towards the model execution. I've already seen a bit. I cannot disclose a lot. It's coming in the future, but it really looks pretty cool. And I'm really looking forward for it. But of course, there are a bunch of other stuff that's planned beside it.
Okay, so for the near term future, so we are heavily working on simulation, yes. And actually, I haven't seen any other implementation that exists today doing it for SysML v2. One of the reasons is that the specification is evolving. It does not describe the execution semantics today. It's evolving, but we are actually quickly catching up with what's available already, what we see, what we understand, and we do have simulation support today. It's not released yet, but we will be continuing the early access program that I mentioned. We made a decision to continue. So our customers will soon get access to early builds of the simulation. And it's very impressive. I'm sure that will be one of these, killer capabilities that will explain and actually make people very clear why should you move to V2, because it will be way better than what we have in V1. And for V1 simulation, it was incredible, I think. Another big ticket item for our roadmap is AI, of course. So we just expanded, actually this week, we seriously expanded our AI team with new developers, and actually we will be speeding up on that. Another big ticket item in general, for us, again, our vision is not, say that, oh, now everyone needs to do diagrams, or now everyone needs to do tables. Actually, no, we actually need to get access to models using the means you understand and are comfortable with. If you only know Excel or tables, you will use that to interact with the model. If you are a developer, likely you will use text. If you are somebody integrating with other systems, you will use APIs. So we already implemented very, I would say, solid support for tables, but we don't have matrices yet. That's another thing that we will implement, matrix support. And even other views like wiki views or document-like views.
Timelines.
Yes.
Charts.
Gantt chart. So that's on part of the plan. Yes. And APIs. So Python APIs, Java APIs, CI/CD, so these things are also top priority for us.
Nice. Well, the future will be bright.
Yeah. Speaking of CI/CD, we had Josas from Sensemetry last time in our podcast, and he told us something about his project with CSAND and why a repository mechanism for SysML v2 or SysML models would also be a catalyst for the adoption. And the question would be, is it thinkable, or is anybody able to build a plugin by himself to connect to CSAND, to this repository?
Okay. So the short, the long answer, maybe I will start with the long answer. Okay. So we should talk about the package management in general. Okay? So that's not new. And we are developers ourselves, right? So we use all these packages like NPM, pip, and basically in software engineering world, there are many popular, package managements. Yeah. So nothing new. But and because it's nothing new, like let's take the most popular one of the most popular, NPM. It's a JavaScript package manager. And we know practice. For example, last year, we had, in September, the biggest ever supply chain attack. So attackers compromised maintainers' account and injected malware, which was a crypto stealer. In the end, that resulted in 1 billion, just understand it, billion download compromise. So basically, the attackers were able to inject code into some packages because there are dependencies, right? A package uses a package, and there's a huge chain of packages. So if you are able to do that, you will infect a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a disaster. And another one was Shai Hulud worm attack. If you remember, that was a self-replicating malware.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it affected lots of damage. So, and what it means that it's less about the software, it's more about how you ensure cybersecurity of these things, right? So there needs to be a personnel taking care of it every day, and that's a pretty significant investment.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing, like we do, how we develop code, because our customers are building, critical software and hardware. So we actually run those vulnerability and penetration tests every day, because any developer can inject some vulnerabilities without even knowing it. Maybe there's a dependency, right? He injected. Another thing, we hire hacker teams to hack our software to actually make sure that maybe there's something we missed, okay? So that same practice needs to be available if we build something for SysML v2, okay? Because models are executable. And at any given point in time, if there will be a public repository of these reusable models, I can guarantee somebody will there will be bad actors at some point. They will hack it. Other people behind on daily basis, able to make sure that they can address these issues. Other people who are checking every model improvement, right? Every new version against vulnerabilities. So it's just a lot more than just building some code, and just making it public and just using it. So if we integrate with something, we take responsibility, and we know that if there will be a model slightly modified, and with the entire mass of a system will start calculating in a wrong way, and that could actually be super dangerous. So who will actually look at these models and understand what's in there? What is the modification? Is that a malicious or not action? So yeah, so that's on this end, and it doesn't matter what kind of package system do we integrate or even write ourselves. These things must be in place. Otherwise, I cannot recommend to use it for anyone. Now, second thing is the usefulness, as always. So we already have a system in our ecosystem, right, where you can actually share models. There are dependency management between models. So all of this is available. What's not available is that, again, we have to look at why do we need MBSE, is to integrate disciplines. So the model uses CAD Simulink models, and these Simulink models depend on other Simulink models. So it's not about managing versions of reusable SysML v2 files and dependencies between them. It's actually about engineering discipline management, entire configuration management. So and our involvement in here is actually we are contributing a lot into the RAS MG working group, reusable asset specification working group, which is exactly doing it, and they are submitting in the middle of this year the new specification, which we will support.
Okay, cybersecurity is an interesting aspect in this topic. Very good. Well, we talked about the language, about the tool, but there's a third piece which is important. It's the methodology. And Aurelijus, you are one of the masterminds of the MagicGrid methodology. So I assume that methodology also evolves together with SysML v2. Can you say a bit about that?
Of course, that's a very good assumption. It actually evolves with the language. It's evolved with the tool. It's really not as simple as it might appear to people. Okay, we had it on v1, but now with the v2 we have different foundation. We have slightly different ways to do things, like, for example, use cases, right? Use cases are very different than they used to be in v1. Also, now it gives the question, how do we use them? How do we integrate them in the workflow? And so we go step by step and try to build, A to Z model. going through the ISO 15288 steps like we do in MagicGrid, and really see how is the best way to use SysML v2. You can do it, in many ways, because SysML v2 is very open. It allows you to do so many things and so many different ways that we want to really find the best way that best fits to the language and utilizes all the new features and capabilities. Also the tool and what actually tool provides, what is the best way to use the tool, specifically on the graphical, because on the textual is again, it's always almost always the same story. But when you're on the graphical, and if you want to build a model from A to Z on the graphical, then where do you start? Which element you do first? Which actually you do next? These kind of things we're trying to answer. So actually we are somewhere in the middle now with the problem domain already done, and then start working on the solution domain. But at the end, why we are not so why it's not already there, because we really want it to be made sure. If we put it in the book, if we print the books, that will be for 10 years in the future.
Yeah.
So you perfectly know it, Tim, right?
Yes.
So you think not about like slides. Okay, this one single performance, I do the slides and forget them. But it's really about 10 years in the future. So we want to really take it seriously and make it mature.
Okay, there is another question from Brian, but I fear that we have to split up that we also get demo. Maybe one thing before that things. So the early adopter program is there for quite some time, and people are trying implementation. So what's the first feedback that you can share? Who is waiting for it? Who is just experimenting? Maybe already other people?
So definitely there are people who are very aggressive about it. And I would say the most aggressive people are book authors.
Don't know who you mean.
That's true, actually. We know like 10, probably around 10 book authors, very extensive working on books. One that I've seen, actually all of them are written using our product, which is a good news. All of them, all these books. And I don't know of any other which is not written using Cameo Systems Modeler SysML v2 implementation. And actually, we have a very nice cooperation with these book authors. Last week, I've seen one book, draft version, 800 pages already.
Wow.
Yeah. So a thick book, by the way. So yes, these guys are very aggressive. Trainers, of course, consultants, they're very aggressive. On the customer side, I would say there's no, I actually was expecting that small customers, small entities will be faster in adopting, but I don't see this trend. Actually, we have very large customers being like hyper focused and hyper aggressive, and also a lot of small customers who are not interested at all. So it's a mix. It's a mix. And the key question I hear is what's the value in moving? Because we need to allocate budgets. We need to allocate budgets because everyone does have extensions, and everyone understands that if you want to make it a success, you will have to rewrite a lot of those extensions. So there needs to be a value, right? So we are trying to do this kind of good job here and demonstrate the value, explain what's the value, why you should move. Yeah.
This is exactly the topic we started with some big players and really looking into the ways how to migrate the methodology, how to migrate the extensions, including custom code, custom reports. So there are, the entire ecosystem with all the integrations. Some of integrations are, third party. So again, there is someone else dependent on them. So it's really, more like observation stage, because you cannot simply easily go to the new environment, and you really need to look into what is really the best way to use SysML v2. But of course, there's also maturity of the language. You probably don't, for for example, take Windows, new version of Windows without the new service pack launched, right? So they're a little bit afraid to go there. Of course, tooling, really tooling, honestly, is behind the V1 tooling in terms of capabilities. So it really depends what you want to do. Execution is a simple example, right? It's not there. There is no single tool that provides it today. We're close, but we still need time. And on the V1, you can perfectly execute the models. So there is really, that question, when we will come to the point when we have the language, the tool, and the methodology more mature than we actually had with the SysML V1. But the observations are happening. The researchers are already using it, for the papers, for the thesis, and it at some point, we will also see the big players changing. That's for sure. Question when?
Yeah, it will take a long time. It's a long process. Yeah, all right. So, but some people maybe already saw it in the podcast announcement that, well, there will be a big announcement for the entire MBSE community. And the numbers of live listeners is also increasing. So all the people wait for it. So before we...
It's going to be at the end, right?
Before we do the demo at the end, what can you share with us?
Okay, so...
Ta-da.
Yeah, the news is we are releasing SysML version 3 support. Joking.
Yeah.
It sounds similar.
No, actually, okay, so let's be serious here. So actually, we are in several weeks, maybe in a couple of weeks, we'll have a release of what was everyone asking for many years. It's a community edition of our SysML v2 implementation.
Wow.
And it's going to be free.
So free.
Yes. So a simple registration. You just actually simple registration. You download the installation, you install it, you use it. So it will provide graphical syntax, textual syntax. The unique value we have is exactly the synchronization between the two. And basically, we designed it for those who want to learn or teach. So if you want to learn it, the language, right? So it's sufficient to do that, because people are actually wanting to experience both textual and graphical. They read books, and everyone is learning. So to enable this, that's what we are doing. So I can just quickly share my screen to show where you would be able to download it. It's not there yet, but again, we'll actually make official announcements in a week or two, hopefully in Cozy IW, but I'm not sure. But these things will remain, as I will show.
Funny coincidence. Right before you started your sentence, there was a question in the chat of a researcher who was asking for easier licensing for labs and teaching, and that's perfect coincidence.
No licensing. Yes, no licensing. So at any rate, you will be able just to go to software.3ds.com. I already registered, but again, registration is just, you put your name, email, and that's it. It's very quick. And then you go to the free downloads section. There's a free downloads, right? And then here you go to CATIA, Magic, No Magic. And by the way, many people don't know, but we had a free reader for our products for years. So that's available here. And underneath, you will find two files, which will be uploaded in a couple of weeks. One will be the Windows installer. The other will be a DMG file for Mac OS. And you just download it, and that's it. That's all you need. Yep.
Wow.
So that's the big announcement.
That's a really big announcement. That
is a big announcement.
Really, really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, so let's go to the demo. So also
you can share again.
Yeah, you can share again and some insights.
So how much time do we? Yeah, how much time do we have, guys?
10 minutes. I think it's okay.
Okay, Aurelijus, do you want to show the MagicGrid first, or should I just go with the demo?
You can go with the basic demo, and I can just really quickly show some of them.
So I will run through the things that, again, I feel kind of responsibility here that we need to educate the community. Again, why SysML v2 is good. And I tried this time to pick these features that I think we don't communicate enough about. All right. So, and let me show you how powerful SysML v2 is. Okay. It's our implementation. And honestly, these things are the only ones that we only have. Nobody else has, but that's part of the standard actually. So in here you see a requirements diagram, but it can be any kind of diagram. And you see there is this requirement which is extended. And it says, oh, the status is disapproved. Okay. And you see that it's because it's disapproved, it's shown in red. And there's a nice legend here explaining what this color coding means. And we support everything is dynamic. Okay. So underneath there are expressions, these queries, right? Saying that, oh, if a requirement has a disapproved status, then it needs to be in red. Otherwise, it needs to be in green. So, and you use these queries here. So to define a style, so all styles in our SysML v2 implementation are dynamic and by a standard query, which is a SysML v2 expression. So now let's see how it works. So I double click on the status here. And let's say I change from disapproved to approved and look at the color coding. It will dynamically change to green, right? So basically underneath it's actively running validation rules and changing the style as we go. And these expressions is something users design. And as we discussed, these values can be changed through APIs, through textual, and the styling is super dynamic. So this is absolutely, I think, a beautiful feature that we implemented in V2. Another demo I can show, again, a quick demo, that's what we discussed. We do support already master rollups. So this one demonstrates a spacecraft consisting of some subparts which have their own masses. So again, you don't need any other tool. In the same tool, you should be able to click and just see, oh, actually there's something wrong in here. Okay. So we don't satisfy some requirements. And you see what is causing that. Well, we see that there's some thruster which is too heavy, right? And that's why we say that the entire system does not satisfy a requirement. Okay. And we can dynamically modify the mass here, let's say to 20. And again, here you go. Your system satisfies requirements right now. And again, all of this like super dynamic. You can, and these things can be changed through APIs as well, not just through user interface. And you don't need, again, to publish it to some, or access it through APIs to write a lot of Java or Python or whatnot code to be able to do that. It's in the tool and it's part of the model. Again, that's part of the standard and that's how it should work. Another great capability that I mentioned is exactly the dynamic views. So let's just take a look at this one. I double click on this diagram, and this diagram is not something I built by hand. Let's just explore. If I just delete everything from here and I go and show elements, and somehow it figures out what to display. So this is again by SysML described in the element. You can say, okay, let's open the textual, and you see, oh, it's saying expose these elements from the model. Again, this is nothing specific to Cameo. It's part of the standard. And you see here the definition. It says view definition defines how you want to display elements. And we can take a look at that definition real quickly. Here you go. It says filter, requirement usages, and requirement definitions. That's what I want in my view. I no longer need to build those by hand. And again, these model can change via APIs, whatnot, and this diagram gets rebuilt for you.
So this is something we're planning to implement also in the methodology, in the MagicGrid. So every cell of the MagicGrid will have some predefined view, and you will be able to easily generate those views. Plus, you can modify it however you like.
Yes. And again, by the way, look at the diagrams. I heard a lot of feedback from our customers that now diagrams in Cameo are finally beautiful. So I hope you appreciate the new style. Actually, we were fighting internally like 6 months trying to find between different options what looks good. It was very tough. Now, yeah, on the new thing, again, I mentioned the roll-up, right? Roll-ups. It's a big topic, but again, that's what we had always. And now, big news is that we are working on a dynamic roll-ups, right? So it's stupid to say that, okay, the system mass is 130 kilograms. Almost never that happens because there probably is a fuel tank and the fuel burns. So at every second, basically there's a different value. So it needs to be dynamic, and we already have it internally available, but we'll announce and provide more details on it in future, in a couple of months, I hope. All right, do I still have some time or?
Sure.
Okay, so okay.
If you have more killer features, yes.
That's probably the biggest one that I want to show, and this is again on simulation. So this is a 2-minute demo. So in here you see again the integrated environment. Just like I said, for simulation you should never need to go somewhere outside of Cameo. So you just go ahead and start your simulation. Okay, you would say we had that in V1. Nothing interesting. It's the same thing. Not really, not really. So in here you see completely new environment, and here you see the system attributes or variables, if you will, right? And I will quickly show you how you can utilize this the way you never was able to utilize in V1. So here I say, okay, there's some port, right? And we will be simulating, by the way, a system consisting of a water tank. So there is a water tank, right? And there is a controller which tracks how much water we have in the tank and opens or closes a valve depending on the water level. Okay, so and here you will see how dynamically we can plot the results of the simulation. You see here, all of this is dynamic. You see those variables here, and you say, oh, I actually see the level is changing. Now my system is being simulated. I see that the water level is increasing, and I including that in the plot. I click on the plot, and now it gets included in the plot. And I want to understand how valve could be reflected in this graph here, right? And we see it here, and that's beautiful, right? You're building these charts dynamically, and you can quickly see that, well, the water level goes up, and then the valve opens, and it goes down, right? So this is really beautiful, but that's just small piece of it. Now you would say, okay, I don't like these charts. I want to have a nice user interface to demonstrate to my management what's happening. And you click on this gauge button, you click on this gauge, and you open such a panel where you dynamically use reusable components and tie them to SysML model by just drag and drop. So you visualize here this tank, this valve, the water flowing, and on the right-hand side, in a minute, you will see all these variable things, which you will just drag and drop on these components here. Yeah, just in a second. And your simulation will be live with the user interface. You just say, oh, the level will be represented on this component. That's my valve. That's my, you will see the water. Also, we'll link water level to this tank. And yeah, all drag and drop, no coding, and you just hit run. And yeah, and you speed it up a little bit. And yeah, and you see the water level is now visualized here. It's just, that's a killer. That's what people expect, right? This is where the value is. All right, so that's on simulation, and that's a very small piece that I would like to demonstrate, but we are running out of time. And Aurelijus, I think the last small demo on MagicGrid. I think MagicGrid is probably one of the key things, these valuable things that we want to show, right? So where we are.
Right, so it will not be as magic as Andrius played. The magic about methodology is really guiding you through the development of the system. So it's not the shiny feature, but it's really the backbone for every client, really to learn how to use SysML, to learn where to start, where to end. So the example that we're actually developing today is the drone. We have another one that we also demonstrated, which is the space toilet. This guy's kind of interesting, but it's not as developed today as the one that I have here. So this is the drone example, and it basically shows where we are today and what we really have. As you can see, we're not yet in the solution domain, so we are in the problem domain, but we have quite a detailed model, with all the different diagrams, for example, captured requirements. Then we have the use case models. First of all, I can jump to the use cases. So we have use case models. We have those use cases detailed in the action diagrams. And then also we have, the subsystems of the several layers. So for example, drone layer, and, you can see the decomposition of the system. So the drone is made of, like energy system, flight control system, etc. And we have a second layer of decomposition for the navigation system. And all those questions, whether when do we need definitions, when do we do usages, are really the ones that we're trying to answer here, so that our client could easily use them. So I can jump to also one of the diagrams that demonstrates, all the behaviors from all the use cases of all the context displayed on the SAR drone specification. And again, it's one of the tasks again to consolidate all of those behaviors, because in SysML v2, with all the freedom for every usage, you can create a bunch of attributes and actions. And then the question is, how do I see the whole picture? How do I see holistically all of the features of all of the usages of that thing? Because at the end, I need to produce something that is the main source of truth. That is my final specification, right? And that would be my the definition of my drone. So it's more or less where we are, and of course our ultimate goal is to build the guidebook. The guidebook that would explain you how would you really build the system from A to Z, and what are those best practices that we recommend from the language perspective, from the tool perspective. And probably then, dependent on what kind of system, what kind of interactions you need, OEM supplier, for example, or maybe the smaller businesses, defense acquisition programs, etc., really dependent on what you want to do. So it's a work in progress, and we definitely communicate more on it in the coming year and the coming.
Cool.
Yeah, we have two additional questions. Maybe you can quickly answer yes, no, maybe. So the one question was, is there any kind of interoperability between V1 and V2 models, to say there is a subsystem model one and you combine it with V2, or does one have to transform it to V2 first?
The short answer is you have to transform it, but we will support incremental transformation, where you can actually update the SysML v1 model and update the target model.
Okay, cool.
But still, it's two models. It's not one model, it's two models.
But they live in the same repository.
Yes.
Okay. And then we have a question, do you need to purchase multiple tools for the integration work, or do you have all those capabilities if you just have referencing the tank valve?
Okay, so I shouldn't be talking about licensing in general, but basically, if you have a simulation toolkit, that gives you simulation. If you don't have it, you only have modeling.
Okay. Like former times.
Yes.
Great. Oh, Tim.
Yeah, wow. What an episode. A good candidate for being #1 in our MBSE podcast charts. And so it was a big firework. Yeah, but it's the end of this episode. So very likely we will do more episodes about the capabilities of your tool, and SysML v2 in general, of course. So, well, what's next in the MBSE podcast series? Well, we will talk about AI, another big topic, in February 24th. So stay tuned on LinkedIn and other social media stuff to look for a more detailed announcement, topic and guests. And with that, we are at the end, and we should, as usual, not forget
Trust us, we are systems engineers. Goodbye.
All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye.